Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition, a draft week edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. I am John Ledyard from pewterreport.com. Along with me today is Scott Reynolds, also from pewterreport.com. And Scott, we've got a great show because A, it's draft week. It's one of our favorite weeks of the year. And Amen. B, it's the final mock draft Monday for the Bucs 7-round mock drafts that we've been doing all draft season long. You were pretty excited about this one, Scott. We think we might have figured some things out.
Yeah, maybe. Ultimately, we're going to find out Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, John. And the interesting thing about this year's mock, and it doesn't happen very often, but we've had a different player at number 32 for every single mock draft that we've done. You look back in certain years, John, and in 2015, we had Jameis Winston as the quarterback at number 1 overall in all 5 of our mocks. Just 2 years ago, we had Devin White in 4 out of our 5 mocks. We basically wanted to put him there, but we said, okay, let's just change it up and we'll go Josh Allen from Kentucky in the middle one. But the first 2 and the last 2 were Devin White. This year at 32, we might not even be right in any of these because we don't know who's going to be there at 32, and neither does Jason Light. That's what makes
a lot
this
harder
year,
at 32.
Yeah, exactly. It's what makes this year fun and interesting and exciting. This is uncharted territory, not just for us, but for Jason Light, the Bucs, and for Bucs fans, John.
Yeah, I mean, I know that some people are like, oh, Bucs fans aren't going to be that into the draft because, we don't have it's 32nd pick and 64th pick. To me, I'd be even more tuned in to, especially people like us, or nobody in national media is caring or tracking about what the Bucs are going to do in the draft. Right. You and I have spent the last, several months trying to figure that out. And so we are super excited to be talking draft all week. We're going to have some great shows lined up for you. And then obviously the mock draft, obviously the draft shows that will be happening live during the draft on Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday, all throughout the day, day 3 of the draft. That runs like 12 to 6 or 7 or something like that. So we'll be on for all those hours. Going to be lots of great content coming up here. And as always, Scott, it is brought to you by our friends over at Celsius.
John, our friends over at Celsius have a tremendous giveaway. What are you drinking there today first? Let's see.
I got the wild berry again. Gosh. I haven't stopped since last week. Yeah.
I can't find that. I got to go to Amazon and get some. I've looked around town and I'm out of it at my house. So
I'll save one. I'll bring you one for the draft show on
Please,
Thursday.
That's awesome. I'm rocking the peach vibe today. It's quickly becoming one of my favorites. It's not too sweet, which I like, but it's got that great peach flavor. But you know what, John, our friends at Celsius, they've got a great promo going on. We talked about it last week. It's going to go all the way through May 1st. You can win an autographed Scotty Miller football and a 1-month supply of your favorite Celsius flavor. That's going to go to the grand prize winner. The good news is 9 other winners are going to get that free 1-month supply of your favorite Celsius flavor. Here's how to enter. All you have to do is subscribe to Pewter Report TV on YouTube. Take a screenshot of that. Follow Celsius Official on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. Take a screenshot of that. Follow Scotty Miller. That's at MillerTime 3_10 on Twitter or Instagram. Take a screenshot of that. John, what are you going to do with these screenshots? You're going to take those and you're going to upload those at the website Celsius.com/Peter. All they need is your name and I think email address, and upload those pictures. It takes less than 30 seconds to do that. Yeah. And your name will be entered into a raffle to win the autographed Scotty Miller football and the free 1-month supply of your Celsius flavor. And the great news, John, is even if you don't get that grand prize, you can still win Celsius, a whole month's supply. So it's a fantastic promotion from our friends at Celsius. Make sure you do that. It's quick, free, and easy to enter.
Yeah, absolutely. That format that they have that's in there for you on that, if you follow that link, it's very, very easy to follow that. So it's great stuff from Celsius as always. Yep. We got to go our Bucs news as we always do to start the show. If there's anything to talk about, Bucs officially picked up the 5th-year option on Vita Vea. We knew it was coming. Jason Light told us during one of his media calls that it was coming, that they were going to pick that up. So it wasn't necessarily surprising or anything like that, but it was still good to know that they've locked in Vea. And I believe the price is like $7 million or something like that. I think it's very reasonable because he hasn't made a Pro Bowl yet.
It really is. And, and I think too, you're looking at a contract extension coming up after this year. I think it's safe to say Vita Vea is going to be in Tampa for a long time. He is a franchise cornerstone piece of this 3-4 defense. And he's a unique find. There's just not many guys that are built like that can move like that are as important as he was. And as good a job as Raheem Nunez-Roches and Steve McLendon did, John, when you look at the impact that he had in allowing Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul to combine for 5 sacks in that NFC Championship game, and then for that Bucs defense to just hound Patrick Mahomes. It all starts up front with that center getting driven right back into the lap of the quarterback, thanks to Vita Vea.
Yeah, for sure. He is, like you said, a very unique player. Not many guys that can be as destructive as he is against the run game and still help out the pass game as much as he does in terms of pass rush. He is really, he's one of a kind in that regard. I can't think of anyone. I know people will give Kenny Clark, but Kenny Clark moves, he's just Vita Vea really needs power to like, that's how he wins. And in the NFL, not many guys can win with just power because it's just really hard. Everybody's strong. You have to have usually something else. And he really doesn't need that much else. I mean, he'll keep getting better, I'm sure. But the fact that he wins the way that he does with just raw power is really, really impressive. He is one of a kind. So
you know what? Here's the funny thing. We had Vita Vea as a Bucs best bet. We had him in our mock draft back in 2018. And there were a lot of people that were clamoring for Derwin James, the strong safety out of
I was one of those people. I was not at the time with Pewter Report, but yes, I was one of those people.
And he would have been a good pick. Now he's had some injury concerns, and that was a concern of the Buccaneers because he was not always healthy at Florida State. But Vita Vea was not a popular selection when he was drafted, and I think now as time goes on, Jason Light looks kind of genius in the selection. And the great thing is even when he was drafted when Mike Smith was the defensive coordinator running that 4-3 scheme, and he's actually a better fit for this 3-4 defense because what Jimmy Lake, the Washington defensive coordinator, head coach, that style of defense is very similar to what Todd Bowles runs, John, and that's a little bit of a foreshadowing to another Washington Husky we might be talking about in a few minutes. But Vita Vea, a great fit for this Bucs defense. Todd Bowles with this 4-3, 3-4 hybrid defense. He's one of a kind.
Yeah, for sure. And let's go. Let's talk about it. Let's go to this mock draft, our final 7-round mock draft spot. We can't stop talking about Washington Huskies, no matter what we do. We've talked about Levi Onwuzurike.
Yep.
We'll probably talk about Elijah Molden at some point. We joked around about Keith Taylor during the Senior Bowl. Yep. And we're finally obviously going to talk about Joe Tryon, who's the Buck we spent the most time talking about.
Yeah, and you know what? I'll tell you what, right before we do that, since we're talking about draft, we're going to promote at the beginning of the show and at the end of the show. Let's get to it real quick with regards to our draft show. It's coming up Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, right? 7 p.m. is the start time for Thursday. The actual draft starts today. John and I will be on an hour beforehand, kind of setting the stage for what could be happening, really kind of diving into the NFC South too, John, because so many of those teams are picking in the top 10, top 15. So we can talk about that as well as setting up what might take place for Tampa. Then Friday, the draft starts at 7 o'clock. We go on at 6 o'clock. And then Saturday, the draft starts at noon. We go on at 11. And we'll be resetting the draft board for Friday and also for Saturday too, as the Buccaneers start day 2 and day 3. And take a look at that. Of course, it's powered by Edmondson Electric, AC, and Security. So make sure you tune in. Wire-to-wire draft coverage. We're going to be on for probably about a collective 20 hours plus. But John, as we get back to the mock draft here, let's go ahead and start with this Washington Husky that we have at the top spot. We had him, actually, we're talking about Joe Tryon, the outside linebacker. We had Tryon as the second-round selection for the Bucs in our second mock draft. That was before the pro day. We actually had Levi Onwuzurike, the defensive tackle, in there at number 32. And I don't think that's too much of a stretch. It's just that after the pro day, this is a big dude, John. 6'5", 260 pounds, running a 4.65, had some very good explosive tests in terms of the vertical jump and, the I think he fared. Yeah,
I think he did well in the shuttle
as well.
He did pretty well in everything. I think, honestly, I mean, he didn't. I don't think he broke the bank in any regard regarding his test, but I do think that he showed that he is a very good athlete. And we know he has the size. We know he has the physicality. We know he's tough. Everybody talks about his football character and his work ethic. And the tricky thing about Tryon, Scott, is that he was raw, and then he came coming out of the 2019 season, and certainly some improvement over the latter stretch of the season, production-wise at least. I think if you watch the tape, skill-wise, it didn't look that much different maybe from early in the season, but I think he was starting to get a better feel for, okay, this guy, he's oversetting. I can just run inside of him, basically that kind of stuff. His awareness was improving, but overall, I think that he's still a pretty raw player. And you have now a situation where he didn't play this past season. He's coming right to the NFL. So there are great traits, but he is ultimately still somewhat of a project as well. And
he's a project. He's a project, John. And the Bucs scouts have really got to make a projection. And one thing that I know that they liked when you look at the 8 sacks he had as a sophomore in 2019 was the fact that they came in the second half of the season. He had 3 games over the last 4 weeks of the season where he had double-digit sacks. He had multiple sacks, 2 sacks apiece against Oregon State, against Utah, and Washington State. And that happened at the end of the year. So you kind of saw the light bulb coming on. And one of the things that the Bucs really like about this guy is just his violence. He's a physical, nasty guy. He's a hustler. Works hard in the weight room. I mean, he's got a sculpted, chiseled physique.
Do you guys still have that picture you put in your article? The one of him is it like a tire or something?
Yeah,
he's shirtless.
Yeah, I'll try to pull it up here for you. But dude, I mean, he's
that picture. See if you can upload that one, because that picture is absolutely bonkers. He is a rare physical. I mean, not many dudes look like him, even in the league, which has obviously some great bodies and some guys that really look the part. But this dude is definitely built different. And if if he's sending you the right vibes as a person, as a worker, as an athlete, obviously checks the box. It's like a lot of the things you want to work with. If you were taking Joe Tryon and you were telling me, all right, the Bucs have a hole here, there he is.
Right.
I mean, I think that guy looks ridiculous. If you were like, they have a hole and they've got to put him into, then I'd be like, okay, well, I don't know if he's ready for that role yet. But for him as a player, it's a great chance at success for him as a player, because he'll get to develop in a terrific environment for his success long term, which is exactly what you want.
And you know what, John? Okay, why is that picture important, right? I mean, we've seen a lot of workout warriors that have great, physical, chiseled physiques and all that. But here's why it's important: because he took the year off. What did he do with that year? Mm-hmm. He hit the weight room. He worked on his body. He worked on his craft, and that's apparent, right? I mean, it's not that the most physical, chiseled guys are gonna automatically be destined for success in the NFL. We've seen the Savvy Piscatellis, the Quincy Blacks here in Tampa,
Savvy,
that could win the Beachbody contest, but not really perform, right? And I mean, even Michael Pittman, and he's not one of the best running backs of all time, is the best looking running back from a physique standpoint. Noah Spence to a degree, exactly right. Mm-hmm. But what it shows is this guy didn't take the year off, right? He took the time to get better. He's serious about working on his craft, and I think it shows, at least in that picture.
For sure. I think that you said it, and I just read a quote from a scout in an article on The Athletic that he said about Gregory Rousseau, who jumped 30 or 31 inches or something, not very good at his pro day. And he was like, this guy had all year because he didn't play this season, and all year to get better at the vertical jump, which is something you could train for and improve. And he just jumped 30 or 31 or whatever it was. He was like, that's just disappointing. So that speaks to what you're saying with Tryon. It looks like he took the year off and made the most of it. Same with a guy like Jamar Chase. Scouts have talked about that meaning a lot to them, and I think it'll mean a lot to teams. The only question for me really is if he's there at 32. I think if he's there at 32, Scott, he's the pick. I think you and I feel fine about that. Question is he going to be there? There's other teams with interest. Certainly not a great draft for pass rushers. I think I'm into the point now, Scott, where we wouldn't have said this a month or 2 months ago, maybe. Yep. I think Joe Tryon's going to go ahead of Jason Owe. I think he's going to go ahead of Joseph Asai. I think he's going to go ahead of Gregory Rousseau for sure. So I think you're talking about a situation where the only edges I really think they're going to go before him, Jalen Phillips, Kwity Paye, And then we'll see about Azeez Ojulari. But right now, if I had to guess, Scott, I'd say Tryon's the third guy off the board. So does that leave him there for the Bucs? That's where things get a little bit touch and go. Could they trade up for him? I would not be a fan of that, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, the thing you like is the frame, and he's got 34-inch arms, is 6'5", 260 pounds. And the difference between he and Azeez Ojulari from Georgia, for example, is Ojulari is 6'2", 249. And you're looking at a longer guy in Tryon, and he's going to resemble more of the Jason Pierre-Paul than he is the Shaq Barrett, right? And from a physical standpoint,
right.
So that's the guy we have in there. You look at Washington and the fact that they've got Vita Vea, they've got Benning Potoaihi on the team already. You can kind of see, right, some of what they like. And Jimmy Lake, a friend of mine, covered the Jimmy Lake during his 2 stints in Tampa when he was Raheem Morris's assistant DB coach. When John Gruden was the head coach, and then when Raheem became the head coach in Tampa, Jimmy Lake was here as the actual defensive backs coach, coaching the entire secondary. And Jimmy's worked his way up the ranks. He was Chris Peterson's right-hand man, was the defensive coordinator for Washington, became the head coach last year, only got 4 games out there in the Pac-12 with all the COVID situations, but went 3-1 and speaks very highly of this. Jimmy Lake will shoot me straight. And the quotes that I got for the SR's Fab 5 match exactly what I heard off the record.
Right.
He's not going to sell me a bill of goods. He was exactly spot on about Vita Vea when I contacted Jimmy a couple of years ago about Vita Vea's chances of fitting into Tampa. And he thinks the world of Tryon and Onwuzurike, and thinks both of those guys would be fits in Tampa Bay. And I wouldn't be shocked, John, if Onwuzurike is there on the board at 64, maybe you pull the trigger there, because he is a classic 3 technique. He wins with quickness off the ball. He's got good hands, good feet. I'd like to see him a little bit bigger than the 290 that he's at, but he's kind of a chiseled guy right there.
Well, I wouldn't be a fan of either of these picks, just to be clear, but I get it with Tryon. I get the process with Tryon. I think it is a position where you can take guys that are raw and take guys that have athleticism. And if you have the right system in place and you have time to mold them, that they can be molded a little bit. Yeah. I don't necessarily feel that way about defensive tackles, especially in the NFL right now. It's just such a high threshold. I mean, you have so few guys who can't play a defensive tackle. Almost everybody can play. So if you can't and you take a while to catch up, usually that position group leaves you behind. So I would be more invested in Tryon as a Buccaneer than I would be on Onwuzurike, but certainly some good. And James asks if we care about physique now. Remember Taylor Mays from USC? Certainly, LaRon Landry. There's plenty of guys with bad physiques. There's plenty of guys with good physiques that ended up good. Or we just are talking about the fact that it obviously matters to that degree. We're not saying we like the pick because of his physique, but it's nice to know that he is swole and doesn't need physical development.
Here's why it matters, because Gaines Adams was allergic to the weight room at Clemson. Like that was that was what the Clemson strength and conditioning coach, I believe, told, if my memory's correct, Rich Bisaccia, who went on the scouting mission with Monty Kiffin at the request of Bruce Allen, the general manager. Yeah. Bisaccia was the running backs coach for Clemson for a while. He knew the lay of the land and all that stuff. He wanted both those guys to go there. Monty Kiffin comes back and says, "Oh, Bruce, you got to draft this guy. He's the second coming to Simeon Rice, blah, blah, blah." And Rich said, "Nope, don't draft him. He is allergic to the weight room." And that's why it matters. It matters because it's a reflection of work ethic. Listen, there are plenty of guys that love the weight room more than the football field. So it's not always a telltale sign. But if you're not going to work on your craft, part of your craft is being physical, gaining strength, right? Being faster, those types of things. Your body is your office, as they say in the NFL. And if you're not willing to spend time in the office, like, what's the point? You're fired.
That's right. Hey, Brady didn't have the best physique, though. Alex reminds us.
But quarterback play is really from the neck up. That's really what it is.
Right. It's a little bit different, but I think Alex is being funny, so I appreciate it.
I remember Brady Quinn had a fantastic physique, and didn't matter at all.
Yep. Absolutely. Great looking guy too. Peyton Turner. Leon wants to know about Peyton Turner. I don't know what he wants to know about Peyton Turner, but he is not our Bucs second round mock pick. Who is our Bucs second round mock pick?
Well, let's go to that mock draft board, shall we, John? And let's just talk about these guys here. So in the second round, we have got Landon Dickerson. John, why did we move Landon Dickerson, who was our first round pick in our last mock draft, which was number 4, to the second round here, which is our final mock draft, John?
Yeah, this is one we got a lot of comments on Twitter actually about, and on the site too, I believe. People saying that they felt like we cheated it to get a guy we wanted in the first round. Actually, I'm not sure that we even did. I'm more of the mind that did we even make a smart decision to get him and to take him in the second round? Because as far as we know, Dickerson could be off the Bucs board, Scott. I mean, we really don't know, but we do know that he is off some teams' boards or in day 3 range for some teams' boards because of his injury history in his past. So that is something that we don't have insight into the specifics about how the Bucs see that necessarily, but we know it's a concern around the league. Other people have reported this too, that it's a concern around the league, especially over the last week or two since those medical rechecks, or I guess checks in Indy. So that is the issue with Landon Dickerson. It's not a talent issue. We've said before, if it was a talent issue, he'd have gone in the first round as a lock. But it's a health issue with Landon Dickerson, both long-term concern about how his body will hold up for some teams, and some teams don't. I mean, you heard this with Miles Jack, right? He fell to the second round. Miles Jack hasn't had any injury concerns in the NFL.
Right.
But like sometimes they just get wrong with these things. They say the guy's got, these long-term concerns that we need to think about with his injuries. I don't know if that's going to be the case with Dickerson or not, Scott. I just know that it is the case for some NFL teams right now.
And I think the other thing too, John, is while he can play guard, I think a lot of teams are looking at him as a center. And there's only X amount of teams that need a center, right? It's one of those positions that could slide a little bit if you're a team that even if you need a center, are you going to prioritize that? Or are you going to do so with the guy that may not be ready by the start of the season, right?
Right.
So, or at least may not be ready for training camp. So teams might want to sit there and say, I want my first round pick to be healthy walking in the door, to participate in all the OTAs, because I want that player to make an impact from day one. And the beauty of that in Tampa is the Buccaneers don't have a need for him immediately at center or guard. He could be the heir apparent to Ryan Jensen next year. He could be the heir apparent to Alex Kappa at right guard next year. But the Bucs, if this guy's not medically ready for training camp or even at the start of the season, that's fine. They don't need him right now.
Right. And I think he will be. I think he'll be ready based on everything we've heard about his prognosis and the progress that he's made in terms of his recovery. The big question with him is how hold up long term, whether those injuries will reoccur. I know teams, especially with medical info, you've heard now how many GMs have we heard in the last few days say how ridiculous it is, how little medical info they have compared to other years. That is going to scare teams.
Right.
They are not going to feel completely comfortable with a guy like Dickerson.
Right.
I mean, I really think he could be on the board late. Now, I have no clue. It only takes one team.
He
get drafted late first round. One team is just like, we don't really care. Like we've seen that happen tons of times before.
And you know what? I think the Bucs are in a position where they can do a little bit of gambling, John. I think they're in a position where they can gamble because this is about want, not need. And that brings us to our third pick, Trey Smith from Tennessee, the guard. Very talented player. Trey Smith has some health issues of his own. Now, not recently, but this was a player that missed 5 games in his, I want to say it was his junior season, where he had blood clots in his lungs. And now the great news is there was a sophomore year. He battled back and has played in the last 23 games. So very much like Landon Dickerson, where he had basically 2 years worth of starts in between ACL injuries. Trey Smith is an absolute people mover, 6'5", 321. John, what can you tell us about Trey Smith?
Well, consistency is a huge issue. The highs are so high for Trey Smith. Everybody raves about him as a kid. They rave about his work ethic. Obviously, he was a big recruit, and it never went to his head. He has always put in 100%, team first guy. Definitely the type of person, type of play demeanor that the Bucs would take. I think a fit schematically for what the Bucs would do. So all those things are positives for the pick. The negatives, like you said, the blood clots issue. It's kind of followed him. I don't know what the long-term prognosis is for it or whatever. Hasn't heard anything about the NFL being super concerned about it, but he did miss some practice time at times due to it, even this past season. So something teams are going to have to weigh. I think he has to get a lot better technically. He looked heavy-footed at the Senior Bowl, I thought, but he has amazing size. He tested well, which shows that whatever he's gone through, it has not taken away from his athleticism. He still has that upside. It's just about consistency. His best reps are great. he just isn't reliable right now. That's fine. Take him in Tampa Bay, cultivate him, bring him along, get him to where he needs to be, then put him into the starting lineup. I think it's an ideal spot for him.
I think from a demeanor fit, he's exactly what they want. He's a nasty finisher. He's a mauler in the run game. When he gets his big mitts on somebody, he's a people mover. Yeah. And I think where he has to work is the pass sets. I think he's got to be consistent there with his punch, and he lunges at times. You see that. But listen, you're talking about a guy that loves football, because it's easy to check out. It's easy to say, well, I got the blood clots in the lungs. Maybe this isn't for me. But he battled back from that, and really is widely regarded as one of the high character players in the Tennessee program. I think he's a scheme fit in the Bucs man blocking scheme too. So I think that if they were to come away, John, talk about the value real quick of solidifying that offensive line in the second and third round if this team were to go Dickerson and Smith back to back.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously take a little bit of risk on the health front with both guys. That's a theme throughout our draft here. It's one of the tricky parts about drafting as low as the Bucs draft. You're not talking about just a third round pick. You're talking about like the 90 whatever 6th or 7th or whatever it is pick in the draft. Like that's low down the board. You know what I mean? So you've got to basically include that in the evaluation process of saying like, okay, it's not just a third round pick. It's basically you're getting in that range where you're probably talking about 4th round grades on your board. So that's what you're getting. So it's going to take some time and development, especially for Trey Smith. I think Dickerson could play if he's. But those two, I think, have the chance to be your long-term. Obviously, Smith would have to flip, but Smith's played a couple different spots too. I think he's played
left tackle
everywhere
too,
but center, right? I think, if I'm remembering right. So
that's correct.
I think he could play. He could be your right guard. Dickerson could be your center. But really, it gives you options, Scott. It doesn't mean those are your definite two guys. Next year, maybe only one of them starts. Maybe Dickerson's a guard and you bring back Jensen and Trey Smith's backup, and that's where you're at. It just gives you options, gives you flexibility. You don't have a complete lack of leverage when you're going to negotiations with Jensen or Kappa or both, whatever it ends up being. They have now some options with some younger guys they can develop.
Exactly. The 4th round, speaking of development, Minnesota cornerback Benjamin St-Juste. And he's an interesting guy. I thought he played really well at the Senior Bowl and probably up to stock a little bit. If you remember, the Bucs have drafted a couple of Minnesota Golden Gophers. They got a pretty good one from the secondary up there in Minnesota, Antoine Winfield Jr., and then came back and got Tyler Johnson, the wide receiver from the Minnesota program. The thing about Benjamin St-Juste that's interesting is just his length. He's 6'3", 202. He is a press man corner. 32.5-inch arms. It's hard to complete passes against guys that are that long, John. And he's still an up and comer when it comes to his ability to make plays on the ball. He had 10 pass breakups and only actually didn't have an interception. That doesn't scare me too much because I've seen how Carlton Davis was really slow to kind of develop into a playmaker, and you look at his ball skills, right? I mean, this was a guy that couldn't catch a cold the first year or two in the league and then had 4 interceptions last year, probably dropped a couple more too. But he's really become a ball hawk. And I think that this is the type of player with the physical traits and the competitiveness that could be a fit in Tampa.
Absolutely. Definitely the physical traits that you talked about. I mean, we know the school. They have some familiarity with that school. Clearly, they feel comfortable with that school. So I think that definitely matters when you're looking for guys and where they represent the right things and things like that. St-Juste had a really good season last year, and I think that again, that arrow pointing up might kind of matter for them moving forward. I mean, didn't give up a lot of big plays, I felt like. And then, also the wingspan, right? I mean, this guy has crazy length at that position. He's a good tackler. That's something that matters to them for sure.
Physical guy, yeah.
Physical guy, yes. Probably at his best if they stayed sort of a cover 3 guy, but also can press. Don't know whether he's going to be mirror and match against all matchups, but he's a good developmental option. He's depth. Again, you're talking about bottom of the 4th. So we're talking about a guy that's going to come out and be a special teams guy right away. He's going to be your 5th cornerback this season. That's what the Bucs are drafting. If they're taking these guys, and everybody wants to see him become number 1 players, but we're talking about guys that you could hopefully can be your 4th or 3rd corner maybe someday, down the road, like this year.
And you know what?
They're the 5th.
It's interesting because we anticipate Carlton Davis getting a big contract, getting a shutdown cornerback contract. Well, the problem with that is you really can't afford 2 guys. You certainly can't afford 3 guys at that position. And we know that with the Buccaneers, like all NFL teams, playing so much nickel, having 3 really good corners matters. Well, okay, so you pay Carlton Davis next year his money. Well, John, you got 2 guys in the same draft class, Jamel Dean and Sean Murphy-Bunting, coming up right behind him. They're in year 3 now. They'll be in their contract years the next year. Logic says you can only keep one of those players, and it's still to be determined which one has more value.
Or if you want to keep either of them.
Well, if you want to keep either, exactly.
Certainly arrow pointing up after last season, but it's a question.
Right. No, you're right. So it makes sense getting a cornerback, and we have them drafting a cornerback in the 4th. But, John, our cornerbacks preview just came out today, did a great job on that. There's a lot of interesting selections maybe in the 2nd round. We were studying those Georgia cornerbacks hard. What can you tell me about those guys real quick? And you can read more on pewterreport.com in the cornerbacks preview. But if they want to go cornerback a little earlier, there's a lot of day 2 corners that might really appease the Bucs here in 2nd and 3rd round.
They could draft a corner in the 1st round. They could not draft one at all. They could draft one in the 4th, and that'd be it. I mean, it's really hard to know because, like you said, they have their top 4 guys for this season. They're ready to roll. Those top 4 guys, I don't know who's around next year. I mean, Carlton Davis you'd think will be, but again, contract year. If he plays great, he's going to be asking for top money, no question. Sean Murphy-Bunting, Jamel Dean.
In a year where they've signed one guys like Steve McClendon and they've signed, Leonard Fournette to 1-year deals. A couple guys get 2-year deals. Yeah. One of those guys, Rakeem Nunez-Roches. The other guy was Ross Cockrell.
Right. So, again, I think that to me, that move was a little bit of insurance. Like, if Carlton obviously is, but even if Sean Murphy-Bunting really struggles, or probably more like the Jamel Dean, really, because I know they love out and really struggles, then, okay, maybe you're thinking a little bit about what needs to happen at this position. Is Ross going to be the kind of the bridge guy to whoever we draft, whoever we take next, whoever we slot in there next? And maybe that next option is whoever they draft in this year, or maybe it's a guy next year. But I just think corner should be on the radar, not only because the Bucs could have a need there. It's one of the most important positions to have depth in the entire league because you play 3 at a time. You could play 4 at a time in certain matchups against certain teams. You could have one guy get hurt. You need the 4th corner to be able to step in and play. What if he's your slot? What if the other team puts their number 1 receiver in their slot? It's just, you cannot say enough about how important it is to have corners. I mean, the Chiefs, I know they don't have big name corners, but they had 4 guys that felt like they could play. It's a big reason why their defense has been as good as it's been. It's probably the most unsung reason. We've seen it over the years. Baltimore's that prioritized corners. It's just a really, really important position to make sure that you have depth at. So I'd love it. Yeah. I'd love it early in the draft. I think the Georgia guys, Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes could be options, 32. Maybe Campbell gets to 64. It doesn't sound like it. We'll see. I like Melifonwu as well, Ty. I think Melifonwu, Ifeatu Melifonwu from Syracuse is a really good player who fits the box, really good in zone, but compressed as well. So there are a couple guys in this draft that really are. I know people have talked about, I've seen people mock Elijah Molden to the Bucs. I don't know if I see that one. He's a nickel-only guy, and he ran 4.62 at 5'9", 180 some pounds,
that's not a Bucs fit.
29-inch arms. I mean, he is instinctive. He is so tough versus the run, Scott. Character-wise, they'd love him, no question.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, you want some measurables, and that profile does not bode very well, not in the first 2 rounds anyway, for a guy succeeding in the NFL.
I'll tell you what, I think that the Buccaneers would even take Keith Taylor from Washington over Elijah Molden just because of the size.
Oh my.
He's more of a scheme fit, 6'2", 187. Much later, day 3. But I'm just saying, if you had to draft one of those cornerbacks, Elijah Molden's the better player. But for Tampa, Keith Taylor, that bigger corner, is more of a fit. I mean, folks, when you're looking at Tampa Bay, they're not looking at cornerbacks under 6 feet. I mean, they're just not.
Right.
And that's why some of the names we've thrown out there, Eric Stokes,
unless you're a beast return man.
Yeah, we'll get to them in a second. You're right. There are some exceptions, right? Tyson Campbell, Eric Stokes, those 2 from Georgia, both are 6 foot, 6'1". Yep. Aaron Robinson from UCF, he's got smaller arms. He's kind of in that cusp, 5'11", 186, probably not. Robert Rochelle, 5'11", 193. Yeah.
We might talk about Robinson some tomorrow, but some of those guys I know Central Florida guy. There's probably some people that are curious about how the Bucs feel, but I have thoughts on him to share in tomorrow's podcast as well. But I think that it's a position that they definitely could look at. So St-Juste, good developmental option there. Then you go round 5. Again, just depth at running back, right? Give yourself another option. Give yourself a guy who can do a little bit of everything. I read a a couple scout quotes from Bob McGinn's articles in The Athletic about Khalil Herbert. And it was very much, this guy's kind of good at everything. He's not really great at anything, but he's just kind of good. He pass protects, he catches the ball, he's tough, he's high character, runs hard. He's not really big, he's not really good tackle breaker, but hey, like round 5, those guys, it sounds like a special teamer. Sounds like he could be, your last running back every year, for the next 4 years. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. For 5th round. And, I think the thing is that's kind of like Keyshawn Vaughn to me, John, is Keyshawn Vaughn really like a 4th or 5th round running back that got overdrafted. And Khalil Herbert is similar in some ways. So why would they draft another one of those guys? Well, in some ways, Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette are similar. They both struggle catching the ball. I think Fournette's a little bit better at it than Rojo. I think Rojo's probably a more explosive runner, pure runner, but size-wise, they're kind of built the same now that Ronald Jones is up around 220, 225. So sometimes if you like a certain body type, if you like a certain style of runner, you get to and then find out which one's the better one. And the thing that Herbert does and does well is he offers some kick return ability. He averaged 26.9 yards per kick return last year, and he's kind of a versatile player. And he's also a Virginia Tech guy. John, you don't think that matters, but last time I checked, the head coach went to Virginia Tech. He's got a Hokies flag on his boat up there at Lake Oconee. And again, it shouldn't matter, but it does, right? I mean, last year, Jason Light and Bruce Arians told each other, they said, I'm going to draft a Cornhusker somewhere on day 3 for my dad, Ron Light. And lo and behold, there's Khalil Davis in the 6th round. And same thing, as a longtime Temple guy, it's where Bruce Arians got his head coaching start. He said, I want to draft the Temple guy. Lo and behold, there comes Chappelle Russell, the linebacker in the 7th round. Doesn't make sense. Don't recommend it. But
not a great strategy, but
it's not my team, right?
Those 7th round picks haven't been working out for a reason.
Right. But here's the thing. If you draft Khalil Herbert in the 5th round, I guarantee you Bruce Arians is going to say, well, he's a Hokie running back, even if it's just for a year. He's more of a Kansas Jayhawk than he is a Hokie running back. But shit like that matters.
Exactly.
That's team, I don't know why.
That's the way that it goes sometimes. It is pretty funny. I think Herbert, could be a good option. That's the kind of player you're looking to add typically that range of the draft. Isaiah McDuffie, interesting choice, Boston College linebacker. This is a guy, I think, how many mocks have we had him in?
Two. We've had him in 2, and we kind of like him, and we like him for certain reasons, John.
That's right.
One of those reasons is he's really fast. He ran a 4.58, and that's a pretty good time for a linebacker, especially one that might last to day 3. He's productive. He can rush the passer, and he dropped into coverage last year a little bit more often and got himself an interception. So he is that classic fast, developmental day 3 linebacker that the Bucs like, and speed matters. Got to be fast, got to be physical. Those are the 2 things that Bruce Arians wants on defense, and he checks those boxes.
Right. Oh, for sure. It definitely represents a lot of what they prefer at those positions, and a lot of what's smart to take chances on late in the draft. I thought Dane's draft guide had a good quote. My favorite thing about Dane's draft guide is not just if you don't check out Dane Bergler's draft guide on The Athletic. I love the insight he gets on injuries. Injuries and character and coaches' comments from about players. Like that gives me the insight that because I can evaluate them, but I don't have time or energy or the capability to contact all these people that he does. And so, when he says Boston College head coach Jeff Hafley says he's got the right attitude, the right makeup, the right mentality. So I think that definitely speaks to something that the Bucs are going to prioritize, that range of the draft, special teams, a guy that can hit, very aggressive, good in the open field. That makes a ton of sense for them. I would love that pick if it happens. Yeah,
totally agree. So we're sticking on day 3, John, and when you look at the 7th round, you're basically just drafting priority free agents. That's really what you're doing. Is I don't want to have to make the sales pitch call to this kid. We're just going to take him in the 7th round. Boise State tight end John Bates, they have signed a lot of Boise State players as undrafted free agents for whatever reason. That's kind of a pipeline program. John Molchon from Boise State last year was one. They've drafted. It didn't really work out too well, but they drafted the running back from there in the
Jeremy McNichols.
5th round, Jeremy McNichols a couple years ago. Yeah. So they had a receiver from Boise State a couple years ago and as a free agent. So we're going to go with tight end John Bates. He is kind of a classic Y tight end. He is 6'5", 250 pounds. He's a good blocker. He's known for blocking. He likes to block. He's an okay pass catcher. But think Anthony Auclair. That's kind of the player that they replaced or they're looking to replace. I don't know that they even need a blocking tight end when you look at how they use Joe Haig as that extra blocker, getting that reserve tackle on the field to be a blocker. But this guy can go out and do something that Joe Haig can't do, John, which is catch passes. We saw that in the end zone in the Super Bowl. Joe Haig, bad hands. So I think that's a situation where there's a 7th round pick. He comes in and adds some depth. And the interesting thing about the tight end room, yes, Rob Gronkowski's back. Yes, O.J. Howard is in his 5th-year option. But those guys, along with Tanner Hudson, only under contract for this year. Cameron Brate will be 30 coming up in July, 31 next year, and he'll be making over $6 million. So that they might want to throw another young tight end in the mix to develop for down the road.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think that's exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for a guy that could play a role down the road. You're not looking for guy to replace Gronk. You're just looking for a guy who can we get in there that can play a role. If we do happen to lose a bunch of tight ends next offseason or whatever, do we have a guy that we got in here, we developed a little bit, we feel like he could do the bare minimum at least of the position, and he's
a good special teams player too. And that's what you're looking for on day 3 is linebackers, defensive backs, wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, guys that will run down and cover punts and kicks. And
while we're talking about special teams, the Bucs are going
goodness.
outside the box, Scott, for one of your crushes in this draft. Boise State cornerback Avery Williams. He's a small guy, but the impact on special teams is large that this guy makes.
Yeah, he's a small guy, John. He's 5'8", and so immediately you're not thinking defense with this guy. What you're thinking about is special teams. He's not coming in to compete for Ross Cockrell's roster spot. He's not coming in to compete for Jamel Dean or Sean Murphy-Bunting and push those guys. No, what Avery Williams is doing at 5'8", 187, he's coming in to replace Ryan Smith, the special teams ace and gunner for the Buccaneers. This guy is way better than Smith, though, on special teams in terms of his versatility. He's blocked kicks. The guy blocked 5 kicks. And when I say kicks, I mean extra points, field goals, a punt. He actually blocked a punt and recovered it for a touchdown. And then he can also return kicks. He's got 3 kick returns for touchdowns, and he's got 5 punt returns for touchdowns. They technically count 1 that he blocked as a 6, but you're talking about a total of 9 return touchdowns on special teams in addition to the 5 blocked kicks.
That just doesn't even make sense, man. Like, how is that?
He just has a knack for it. He's got a knack for special teams. And on day 3, guess what, John? If you are the last cornerback on the roster, if you're number 5 or 6, you better be playing special teams. And that's what this guy would be drafted for. He would be drafted for 4 years to come in, just like Ryan Smith was. Everyone's like, why is Ryan Smith on this team? For special teams reasons. And that's why you draft this guy. That's what day 3 is all about. Finding depth, but finding guys that can make an impact on special teams.
Right.
And this guy, that's all he did. Oh, well, actually, that's not all he did. I don't want to sell him short. He actually is a pretty decent defensive back. Now, in Tampa Bay's scheme, John, he'd only be a slot corner. You can only put him inside. But if you look at what he was able to do, he had 4 career interceptions, 5 forced fumbles on defense, and then had, 17, 18, 22 pass breakups as a 4-year starter on defense. This guy is competitive.
Yes.
He's a gamer. He has if you're small, you better be fast. He runs a 4.4 flat.
Right.
So I like the kid's makeup. I like what he does on 4th downs.
I mean, what do you even need to say? 9 career touchdowns on return. I mean, 5 returns, 3 kick returns. I mean, this is crazy. I don't remember that happen. I don't remember 9 before, and I don't pay a ton of attention to special teams, so maybe I missed it. But it seems crazy to me that guy. He's barely been talked about during this draft process. So it's crazy. But also the fact that he runs a 4.4, to me, that shows that kind of success can translate. If he ran 4.6, and I'm gonna be like, well, is it gonna, but the fact that he runs 4.4 is pretty good for his stock.
Right. Yeah. And the thing too is you're getting him on day 3. Ryan Smith was a 4th round pick. And you know what? Avery Williams might go in the 6th round just because of that return versatility. Sure. But listen, Tampa Bay, kick return's one thing because you don't really control your kick return game, right? The kicker does. If it's a touchback, then you can do about it. Punt return's a different story. The Buccaneers have not had a good return man really since Clifton Smith, Carl the Truth Williams. Those are the two that stand out in my mind. They could use an upgrade in the return game, and Avery Williams could be that factor.
5 punt return touchdowns. Bucs are the kind of team, Scott, that could see this guy, and if they love his return ability because they don't have a lot of holes, and they just want to say, let's try and score on special teams this year, they could take him in the 5th. I mean, they could, we just don't know. You know, they're not in the position of other teams where they're like, wow, we can't take that guy. We got to try and find a number 2 tight end or a number 4 corner, number 3 corner. You know, in the 4th or the 5th. You know, that's right. That's not where the Bucs are at, so they could do some crazy things. I don't think it'll be a kicker or a punter, but I think special teams could be a big priority for what they're taking. That's the only thing they lost. They lost a couple special teams contributors, so
that's right.
That could be a priority day 3, starting early on in the draft. So yeah, it's great stuff in the draft. Real quick before we wrap up the show, Scott, I wanted to make sure that I mentioned again our friends at Playbook Products. Because actually, I shouldn't say before we wrap up the show, but I should say before we talk about a few more offensive linemen and defensive linemen that the Bucs could draft. But before we do that, our friends over at Playbook Products are changing the game, Scott. They are doing some awesome stuff with these mugs. Great plays in Super Bowl or Bucs history, Super Bowl history, other teams. If you're like football or whatever, NHL, NBA, it doesn't matter. You know, if you like, they have stuff for you. Coasters and mugs, all kinds of stuff over on their site. Go to playbookproducts.com. Check out their stuff. Makes great stuff for your man cave or your woman cave, but also maybe more than anything, great gifts for people. Terrific gifts for people. Mother's Day, Father's Day coming up. And obviously the start of the season, not that far away, believe it or not. The time is flying since the Bucs won the Super Bowl. We'll get to that point where people are, they're looking for those. Those kind of editions.
Love it.
Yeah, it's awesome stuff. So check out playbookproducts.com. Make sure you get into what they're putting down over there. It's some really good stuff. This O-line class, Scott, we know the Bucs are going to do something. We know center could be a possibility. Here's my thought process for why, if they want to take a center, maybe they want Ryan Jensen back, but if they're thinking about center and they don't know for sure what they're going to do at the position, one of the things that I think about this draft is that they're going to go center early, Scott, because there are centers. You'll hear people talk about, the depth at center in this class is great. That's true to a degree, but it isn't necessarily true for the Bucs scheme. If you are a zone-heavy scheme, a lot of these guys are going to be for you. Yeah. Kendrick Green from Illinois, zone-heavy scheme. Michael Manoy from Penn State, zone-heavy. Drew Dahlman, zone-heavy. Those guys have to really be in zone schemes, even if Royce Newman is moving to center. Same thing. Drake Jackson from Kentucky, same thing. You know, I think Robert Haynes even from Notre Dame, if he moves to center, he played right tackle last year. He's a zone scheme center. So maybe you make David Moore a center, Grambling State guy if you take him. That's a possibility, Scott. I think Josh Myers from Ohio State could work in any scheme. I really liked his tape. Still think he's probably more of a zone guy. Real quick, that center group that is good, and it matters for that position. You don't does. If you're trying to double team guys off the ball, you're vertical or you're horizontal. The scheme really matters. I think Landon Dickerson and Creed Humphrey are two of their best bets in this class. I mean, those are the two. After that, it kind of falls off if you're looking at that type of center.
Yeah, that's right. And, you know, I watched a lot of Big 12 football being a Kansas State alum. So I've seen a lot of Oklahoma games. And Creed Humphrey, he's a fantastic technician. You look at the size, 6'4", 302, and you compare that, you know, to 6'6", 330 pounds for Landon Dickerson. Those are two different body types.
Yes.
The thing about Creed Humphrey, though, is you got to remember, A.Q. Shipley was the player that they signed when they needed a backup center, right? So I don't know that they're beholden to having a big guy in there. I know Ryan Jensen is a fairly sizable guy, 6'4", 315, 320 pounds. But Creed Humphrey is such a good technician, and he's as close to an NFL prospect. He and Dickerson, like you said, are the cream of the crop when it comes to the center position. Quinn Miners is another guy, and I think that he's going to be drafted higher than the Bucs like him. We've had him in some of our mock drafts. We've kind of been pushing the Quinn Miners narrative a little bit, but
people have probably noticed that we've backed off.
We backed off a little bit.
Talked much about Quinn Miners.
It's not that they don't like him. It's just that I think he's going to get drafted on day 2, and I think the Bucs see him maybe as a 4th round pick.
Maybe if he's there at the end of round 3, but I think he gets drafted before then. So that
agree.
kind of took him out of consideration for us a little bit.
Yeah. But I would say,
but he can definitely be scheme versatile as a center, by the way, Charlie.
Yes,
Although I think, again, he's going to probably have the zone background a little bit too.
Yeah, Creed Humphreys is a player we haven't talked about enough, and I think that could be a player that's in play in the 2nd round for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, you and I have talked about a couple players the last week or so that we've said we probably need to touch on this guy on the show because we really think he could be a possibility. And I'm going to write an article, actually. Hopefully it comes out. Should have my final 32 team mock draft dropping tomorrow morning. I'm about halfway through that right now. And then tomorrow I'll have an article, hopefully in the afternoon, if all goes well, that will highlight the players I think the Bucs should take. And then I'll have one on the players the Bucs I think they will take too. And I think Creed is one of those guys that might fall into both groups. We'll see if it's a 32. I think he definitely could sneak into the 1st round, but he is one of those guys that tested like an elite athlete at his pro day. I'm not saying he's an elite athlete, but he can definitely move. He can give your offense a couple things because he can, when the Bucs want to run split zone and they need him to reach somebody, he can do those zone blocks. He can execute those reaches. He can also create movement off the ball with double teams. He's very good at that. And yes, I think that at times he does get a little doubled over. His frame, like you said, it's fine, but he definitely will need to become a great technician. He already's a good technician. I think he's going to need to keep growing in that direction. His game is right now, he's molding his game the right way because that's how he's going to win. He doesn't have this great frame. Like Dickerson plays too high, but it just doesn't matter. You can't move him. He's freaking huge, Scott. I mean, he's huge. And Creed isn't quite the same way. Not that you're going to bull rush through him, but you can knock him back for a second, get on his edge. Yeah. I think more sophisticated pass rushers could challenge him early on. But there's a lot to like here, and I know some people in this group hear us talk about Brandon Thorne. He loves Creed Humphrey. He thinks he'd be a great pick at 32 for the Bucs. So we'll see what happens.
And I think too, you talk about the guard position, and really there's some early, middle, and late for this team. I mean, there's Wyatt Davis for Ohio State, maybe in the 2nd round. We talked about Trey Smith in the 3rd round from Tennessee. You and I both like David Moore from Grambling State as a day 3 guy, maybe the 4th or 5th round. So there's definitely some options there. The Buccaneers like those big physical man scheme interior linemen. But the other thing too, you got to keep in mind, John, is when you look at Tampa Bay's offensive line, every single one of those starters has played left tackle before in college. Right? Donovan Smith was a left tackle at Penn State. Ali Marpet was a left tackle at Hobart College. Colorado Pueblo. It was that's where Ryan Jensen played at left tackle. Then you've got right guard. I mean, we know Alex Kappa was a left tackle at Humboldt State, and Tristan Wirfs played some left tackle. Also played right tackle, obviously at Iowa. So don't rule out like a Liam Eichenberg as somebody who
he was our Bucs best bet, right?
Yeah, at tackle, and he could play tackle. He could also, because there's an opening right now at the right guard position, if Alex Kappa departs, they could draft him and say, we like you at tackle down the road, but we're going to start you right now at guard.
I think that's a strong possibility for the Bucs that they would look at the position that way if they take a tackle to move one to guard. Like I said, there are some options, but I think it's at the top for the centers. Maybe Miners in the 3rd round could be an option. He is somebody that could be scheme versatile center, but you're not going to get Elijah Vera Tucker, and you're probably not going to get a shot at moving Tevin Jenkins inside, or even Christian Darrisaw, whatever you want to do. I mean, you're probably not going to get a shot at those types of guys.
Right.
So I think, you need to be thinking about what are your options. And at guard, there's not a lot of guards I love. You're just pure guards in this draft. So, my strategy would be with you, Scott. Even though Eichenberg might be a little bit light for what they like, plays tough. What a great finisher. I mean, he is so nasty, Scott. He just every play gets after people.
There's a little bit of Alex Kappa, to his game. And
he is edgy.
He is. And Kappa, really, to his credit, really just completely reshaped his body this past offseason. I mean, he did not look like a guard. He looked like a left tackle playing guard, like long and lean and all that, and didn't have the anchor, didn't have the base, didn't have the power, and would get bull rushed. Guess what? I mean, the guy comes back. He's got, bigger thighs, bigger butt. I mean, he looks like a guard now. That's what the Bucs brass was telling me. They said, wait till you see Kappa. He really worked on his body. And lo and behold, how did that help him? How did that translate, John? Well, he went from pass protection being a liability to really being a strength. He's the only starter that didn't give up a sack last year during the regular season.
Yeah, he played great, and I think that it's that mentality that we've seen. It's clear at this point. The Bucs are looking for character, work ethic, durable grinders up front. I mean, all their guys have fit that description at this point in time. So that's who they're looking for. That definitely represents Liam Eichenberg. So those are going to be some of their options, I think. I don't see, Wyatt Davis is a guy, by the way, Scott, that just reading McGinn's articles, talking to people, kind of reading between the lines, it feels like everybody is down on Wyatt Davis. Like he is going to fall. He could be there for the Bucs at the end of round 3. Wouldn't shock me if he was into round 4. I think there's concerns about him. So that could be the pick instead of Trey Smith if they're worried about the health or if Smith's gone when they pick late in the 3rd round. Those guys make sense. But yeah, if you're talking about the first 2 rounds, I mean, you're looking at pure centers and guards that could be there. Guys who are centers and guard projections right now could be there for the Bucs. I really think Dickerson and Creed Humphrey, and then maybe in the 3rd round, Quinn Miners. I'm not sure that I see a guard that makes a ton of sense for them other than maybe Trey Smith or Wyatt Davis late in the 3rd. But with the first 2 picks, 1st and 2nd,
it's probably center.
It's probably one of those centers or a tackle moving to guard. That's the way I see it. I think that's what that pre-draft process is kind of narrowed down for me with the fits.
Well, and speaking of draft process, we're going to plug it again, John. We've got our draft show coming up Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, right? This is the PeterReport.com draft show powered by Edmondson Electric, AC, and Security. Thursday, check us out at 7 o'clock. We're going to go wire to wire from 7 p.m. all the way through to the Bucs pick later that night. Friday, we start at 6 o'clock. The draft starts at 7. And again, we'll have coverage of rounds 2 and 3. And then Saturday, draft starts at noon. Be sure to log on at PeterReport.com. We'll have it live streamed there, or you can catch us on our YouTube channel. It's going to be simulcast between PeterReport.com and also our Pewter Report YouTube channel, which is called Pewter Report TV. In case you don't know, you might want to subscribe, but be a good idea to do that. And great thing is, John, is you can check out our YouTube page, Pewter Report TV. Click subscribe. Also click notifications. Just do those quick little things real quick, and that way when we go live anytime, you'll get a notification. And make sure you follow us on our social media channels at Pewter Report, Facebook, Twitter, and also Instagram.
Absolutely. AS wants to know, what if Tevin Jenkins drops to the mid-20s? Would you trade up for him?
Yes.
There has been the Tevin Jenkins slide. Rumors have started after his stock had moved all the way up to the top 15. Now the talk is he could slide all the way back down. Daniel Jeremiah, you could say what you want about whether his rankings are predictive or whether from people around the league. I'm not totally sure. But he put Jalen Mayfield over Tevin Jenkins in the 30s. And I don't think Jalen Mayfield is in the same stratosphere as Tevin Jenkins' player. So, this is a confusing one. I am not sure what is exactly contributed to the recent. I've seen some of the comments and some of the articles that come out right before the draft, the McGinn releases or Feldman releases. I don't know. I mean, some of these guys are just scouts talking. Some of them are executives. Some team will still love them. I knew several teams that love them in the top 20. I'm not sure what it is, maybe, but there's now this chance that he could be there at least in the 20s. I still don't think he's going to fall out of the 1st round, but I'm not advocating trading up for anyone, Scott. I'm not, because I don't think that the value is typically there. But you're the Bucs and you're in a unique situation. Jenkins is clearly a fit. I'm not going to complain about it if it happens.
I would not at all. If anything, I'd rather see this team trade up and get a star player that's going to come in and be a surefire starter and hopefully a guy that can challenge for some Pro Bowls rather than trading back. This year, John, it doesn't make a lot of sense to trade back and acquire more picks in this draft because I don't think it's a great draft to begin with. And there's a couple of guys, John, probably 6th and 7th rounders that may not make this team. They may be destined for the practice squad because there's just not many roster spots that are going to be open on this team. Years past, this team has kept almost in its entire draft. I think every once in a while you see a Terry Beckner, the 7th round pick, didn't make it. You mentioned Jeremy McNichols, a 5th rounder, doesn't make it. But usually the Bucs will give their draft class the benefit of the doubt. But I would rather trade up than trade back in this year's draft. Not to mortgage the future to get to 15 or something, but maybe if a guy's there at 25 or so, maybe you move up and see what's happening. But, John, it comes down sometimes to if you like 2 players, right, then you go to the measurables, right? They both have the same grade. You go to the fact that maybe one guy's faster or has more explosion or has longer arms, whatever. I don't think that teams would ask this because it's kind of a personal question, that Zoom process, but maybe one guy manscapes and the other guy doesn't, right? I'm just saying.
I knew something was up.
It's just one of those things, John, where
sometimes you got to know.
Sometimes you got to know. And listen, the first pick of the 2021 men's grooming draft, the Ball Saxonville Sagwires select Manscaped, the leaders in below the waist grooming. Looks like Mel Kiper gave an A+ grade because this pick is a major upgrade for that Bush defense. No. For all of my draft fans, got an exclusive 20% off promo code. That's pewter at manscaped.com. Now, the reason why Manscaped is the guaranteed #1 pick is because of the performance package. You've heard us talk about it, and you're going to hear about it again. This package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Inside the performance package, you're going to find the products and liquid formulations that have been developed to turn your bathroom into a salon for your balls. This package includes the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. I can confidently say, because I use it, this is the best tool on the market for ear and nose hair. And the thing is, you turn this bad boy on and you stick it right up your nose or in your ears, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't snag. Forget the tweezers. This is the product to use. It's quick and easy, and it doesn't hurt. And that's music to my ears because I hate using tweezers to pull out my nose hairs. It's awful. So imagine showing up to your post-quarantine date with some nose pubes popping out. That's not the best look, fellas. Use the Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer. The performance package also comes with performance boxer briefs. John, they're the best, most comfortable briefs that you'll ever find. I think you'll agree with me on that.
Mm-hmm.
I got this travel bag too. It's called the Shed for when you're done quarantining. And you can use some of these other liquid formulations, such as this is the Crop Preserver, and then we've got the Crop Reviver. Now, the Crop Preserver, this is the anti-chafing ball deodorant that ensures that your balls smell amazing. And the ladies in your life are going to love this. The Crop Reviver, this is the spray-on toner for your balls. Yep, you heard it right. It's made with soothing aloe and witch hazel extracts that make your balls feel like Brady after a little avocado tequila. For a limited time, the performance package, you're going to get not just 1, but 2 free gifts. Actually, you're going to get 3, but 2 are from Manscaped, 1's for me. You're going to get the Shed, which is this is a quality travel bag. John, you got one of these. This is not a piece of garbage. This is a quality bag.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, you're going to get the performance briefs, which are awesome. So much so, I'm going to buy some more.
Yep.
Show your support for the show and get 20% off plus free shipping using the promo code pewter at manscaped.com. They got a lot of great high-end products on their website, from disposable mats for your pubes to foot deodorant. So make sure you check out manscaped.com. Use the promo code pewter and buy the performance package. You get free shipping. Now, the other thing is, I got 5 of these left. This is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers collectible. This is a colored glossy book. It's a great collectible. It's got all of the player profiles, the game breakdowns from the Bucs Super Bowl season, written by our good friend Greg Allman and Joey Johnston. Both of those guys, one worked at the Times, the other worked at the Tribune. So it's a fantastic keepsake collectible. I got 5 of these. If you want this, I'm going to send this to you. All you have to do is the following: go to manscaped.com and place your order. Use the promo code pewter. Send me your transaction. Send me the receipt, your digital receipt that you get. It does not have your credit card information on it. Don't want it, don't need it. But it will have your address. That's what I need. So make sure you send me that at sr@pewterreport.com. Easy to remember, sr@pewterreport.com. And I'm going to send you, free of charge, the Tampa Bay book.
Now, just to let some people know, Scott, they're talking about trading up, and I think sometimes people talk about it and they don't know what it would take to trade up. So I'm using the old trade chart just to give people an idea before we wrap up the show what it would take. Bucs are at 32. To get to 25 would be about an 130 point trade up. So they would need to basically give up 130 points worth. If you can look up this trade value chart online. This chart is not totally in vogue right now. I mean, some teams still use it, obviously, but they've also updated it. There's been some changes to it. So you're talking probably about what their 3rd round pick would be. I mean, that's really about where you're going to be at with this pick. So that's to get to 25 from 32. The Bucs would probably be giving up that late 3rd round pick. That would probably be it. Now, if they want to get higher than that, say you want to get in front of Pittsburgh for Tevin Jenkins, or in front of the Jets, I think are 23 if I'm doing it off the top of my head. But if you're trying to get in front of those teams for Tevin Jenkins, if he's falling into the 20s, you might be giving up a third and a seventh, maybe a third and a sixth as you get higher. They have 2 sevenths, obviously. They could give the Steelers 7th back to him, 253.
Right.
If they trade to 24, the Steelers could move back. But so I think that that's kind of what you're looking at in terms of compensation. The Bucs would be giving that up. So you ask yourself, are you comfortable with giving up that late third round pick in a year like this one? I think I would be. I'm not saying I advocate for trading up in those situations, but I like Tevin Jenkins a lot. The idea of him next to Tristan Wirfs long term in the NFL would make me very, very happy. There's no question about that. So
interesting position too. If the Buccaneers wanted to trade up in the first round, Tennessee would be an interesting spot at 22. Mm-hmm. You're looking at John Robinson. That's Jason Light's good friend, the general manager there. They both worked together. Obviously, John was kind of the protege under Jason for several years in Tampa. So just kind of connecting some dots. Doesn't mean that Jason wouldn't trade with the Steelers or Jacksonville at 25 now that they own the Rams pick. But you look for those connections, and 22 Tennessee. That might be a spot where some of those guys that they really want are still on the board, and maybe the Bucs move up 10 spots.
Right. Definitely a possibility.
I think that's as high as far as they would go.
I do too. That's a long way to trade up. Right. It does. It does. So we'll see what happens. Certainly lots of options on the table for the Bucs. We've broken out a lot of them on the offensive line side. We've touched on defensive line a lot over the last few months, probably the most heavily. So we touched on it today, but not going to go super in depth on that one again. I think most people kind of know where it stands there.
Our good friends at Celsius want us to promote this one more time. Win an autographed Scotty Miller football and a 1-month supply of your favorite Celsius flavor. Now, the thing is, this promotion only runs through May 1st. Okay, so make sure that you do this and do it now. Make sure you're subscribing to Pewter Report TV on YouTube. Take a screenshot. Follow Celsius Official on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Take a screenshot. Follow Scotty Miller. That's @Miller_3 times. Number 10 on Twitter or Instagram. Take a screenshot. Grab all those screenshots on your phone. Log on to Celsius.com/Pewter and enter your name and email address and upload those pics, and they will register you to win. And you can get a Scotty Miller football and a 1-month free supply of your favorite Celsius flavor. And if you don't win the total grand prize, 9 other winners are going to get a 1-month supply of Celsius. It's a great free promo. Enter now.
Right. Great stuff from Celsius. As always, we'll be back tomorrow on the show, 4 p.m. Eastern, talking about some of these DBs, going in depth with what we think the team could be looking at in the defensive backfield. And then, of course, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Then Thursday will be on at night for the first round. Friday again at night for the second round. And then Saturday all throughout the afternoon, bringing you the day 3 intel that you need on each of the Bucs picks. So as always, thanks so much for jumping in with us and listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.